Okay, so I think we've given everybody a couple minutes to join in, and if others join us, that would be great. So we'll go ahead and kick off. Greetings to everybody today. We sure want to thank you for joining this coffee chat on the Critique and Awards program, or more informally C&As. You'll hear it called if you haven't heard it called that already. And today we're learning about the media relations and writing categories, but also just as the coffee chat nature, just general discussion about C&As or questions. We hope you'll engage with us. The group actually had some goals for today. Just one, to be able to start everybody thinking about the C&A process before the deadlines are kind of announced. I don't know for you guys, but I know for me, each year it seems that deadline comes faster. And so the earlier we can begin to think about it, kind of the better. And then we definitely wanted to outline how the program works for anybody that's new or maybe never been a part of the submission process before. And then go over the changes that we've made specifically to the media relations and writing community category classes. So of course, we want to engage with you in general conversation or questions about C&As too. So we just ask you to jump in or use the chat for kind of an informal conversation. So just to kind of help us get acquainted, I know Julie, Ann, and Inka, I'll just ask you guys, can you, if you're able to, can you just tell us, are you totally new to the process, or are you looking to kind of just learn about the changes that we made, or did you maybe have some other goals or things you were wanting to highlight today or want us to cover?
Well, I am totally new to the process. I had been on the job about 10 days in June when the ACE came along, and I'm sure deer in the headlights. So definitely need to learn what everything is about.
Wonderful. Good. Well, welcome. Glad to have you.
I haven't submitted before, so I'm fairly new to the process. My colleague has done because he does more like video projects and stuff like that. So he submitted for awards for those. But I was thinking it'd be nice to do some of our reports
Sure.
for the writing. So
very good.
And I also do media relations. So, but I'm not sure how you get awards for that, but I do that too.
So you've got the right category for sure.
Yes, that's I'm the writing and media relations side of the organization. So, and I work for the Oregon Forest Resources Institute. So,
yeah. Very good.
Hi, and this is Ann Robinson from Iowa State University, and I work for CAL's Communications, or College of Ag and Life Sciences Communications, same big umbrella unit that Lisa is part of, but also the Iowa Nutrient Research Center. So my time is split, and I'm the research writer for the college. And so I'm really interested in learning more about the C&A Awards. I've submitted I've made submissions for 2 years, maybe 3 years, and really was disappointed at the level of feedback that I received, but also it seemed like the categories just didn't really quite fit the kind of work I do, or that even the way we put out news releases here. And so I'm really interested in the changes, but also if you could say anything about the feedback that was received from this survey. I'm interested in what other people had to say about the process. So thanks a lot for doing this.
Well, thanks for joining us. So we'll try and make sure we get all that addressed. I think probably the best thing to do is kind of start and introduce the team that'll be talking to you today if you don't already know everybody. Stacy Stearns is the Media Relations and Writing Learning Community Chair. She is the communications specialist at the University of Connecticut Extension Service, and she's been a member of ACE for 5 years now. And some of you may recognize her from the conference this summer because she was recognized as one of ACE's rising stars. So I want to congratulate Stacy on that award and then thank her for being our fearless leader here in the learning community and all she does for ACE. Then joining her in the presentation today and discussion will be Chris Branham. Chris is the Media Relations and Writing Learning Community Vice Chair. He is actually a public issues education leader from Oregon State University, and he's also been a part of ACE for about 5 years. My name is Lisa Vold, and I'm actually the moderator today if we need one, but we've got kind of a small group, so I think we'll just kind of do a free flow chat. But I am a program manager and communications specialist with the Egg Industry Center, which is located at Iowa State University. I've been a member of ACE since 2014, but I'm super excited to be serving as the Media Relations and Writing Learning Community Vice Chair elect. So that's kind of the team that's bringing this to you today, or the team that was responsible for making these decisions, if you want to complain. So with that, I think we'll turn it over to Stacy to kind of kick us off on the process, and then Chris will join her and we'll just have an open discussion. So Stacy, thanks for leading us.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and everyone that's going to be watching this as the C&A deadline gets closer. So the critique and award process, we have a mixture of experience here, is going to open in early December with award submissions being accepted through January. It's going to be a hard deadline this year. There will be no extensions, so make sure that you get those nominations in and get them in early wherever possible. And then the other thing that we really wanted to share, besides the changes that we've made, is that there's some great opportunities in critique and awards. We encourage everyone to enter and ask questions now, anytime between now and the deadline. It's a great way to have your work recognized. I'm from a small state, but we have managed to place in the C&As in the past, and it's really validating to be recognized by your peers and to have that critique. To answer Anne's question, we did survey everyone earlier this year about the critique and award process, as well as other things from the LC. The ACE office, along with Ricky Telg, our ACE vice president from the University of Florida, who's in charge of the C&A process this year, is working on it. There's a judges training. There are expectations that they're going to communicate differently with the judges to have a longer critique in there. It hasn't been a problem in all categories. I know I actually enter the marketing categories. I haven't entered media relations, and I've only entered writing once, and that was a few years ago. But they are working on the critiques with the judges for the categories that had lesser critique information. So that is an issue that has been raised by several of the LCs and is being addressed. And so for the new members, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're just going to look at the ACE website. Let me move it over to the middle. So when you go to the ACE website, I am logged in right now, so you may need to log in to see all of this. But when you go to professional development, we want to just click on this award programs, not go over to these drop downs. So click right on award programs, and it takes you to this page. And I believe Lisa is going to drop that into chat. I recommend bookmarking this page so that you can see it and get to it easily, because it explains all of the awards. It will have when the deadlines are announced, and you'll be getting the ACE emails as well, but the deadlines will all be there, the frequently asked questions, the instructions, past recipients, and then all of our categories and class descriptions are on this page. So Lisa or Chris, anything you want to jump in with before we dive down into our LC categories?
I think the only thing that is valuable is if you're totally new to C&As, on this page, before you dive into your categories, there is actually critique and awards FQ&A and rules and things that'll help you as you go through. And it's even things you don't think about, like when I send in this entry, there's certain ways they like your files named so that they can sort through and the judges can get your stuff. So it's things you don't necessarily think about that are helpful if you haven't done it before.
Here's his name. And I know I didn't say it. It's a January 31st hard deadline. I hadn't looked it up beforehand and didn't want to say without and get the wrong one. So it is January 31st. But this is what Lisa talked about, that naming process and everything, and it's all right here on the web anytime you want to access it.
Yeah.
Chris, anything you wanted to add in?
Yeah, we did get some, so in the survey that we sent out earlier this year, we got some input from people about why they didn't enter the C&As. And we did get a few people saying that they waited to the last minute, or, deadline came up. I think it's a really important thing to definitely look at that criteria that we were talking about. So Submittable is the platform for those who haven't entered at all, who are watching this recording or on the call. It can be a little wonky, and I definitely would not wait until the morning of January 31st to start entering. For those who are watching this recording, definitely don't wait until the day of or the day before, because it can be a little, even our categories are a little bit less intensive in terms of the files that need to be submitted. But even then, and following the naming conventions and making sure you get your entries in and you're not rushing them. There are some open-ended questions asking about your intent, some things that you do have to put some thought into as opposed to just filling in fields. So my big takeaway would be, don't wait until the last minute, because and even if you maybe have an entry that you think is a slam dunk, that I would go ahead and do it as a, early on, just so you can get familiar with the process if you want to submit more later on. But that's always something that catches people, especially the ones who are entering for the first time. They probably think it's going to be just a series of a few things, and then you just drop your thing in. But it probably takes, I would guess probably at least a half hour, if not more, just for even like a basic one, especially if you're trying to meet those, trying to satisfy the rubrics that are in the classes.
And
And
we
then
do.
also,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Lisa.
Stacy. The other thing is, Chris is kind of addressing the things that are within your control, but there are some things in the past during ACE that submission deadlines that have not been within people's control, like the fact that there was a hard freeze last year down south and it took out half the power grid, right? So there's things like that also we have to be aware of. And so even though you feel good that you would be able to get through the system, just know sometimes the system still has to be available. And so you want to kind of plan for those things too, because you sure don't want to put all the effort in and then just not be able to get it submitted. So
And even if there's a hard freeze, or it's going to be a hard deadline. So if you see your weather report and it's not looking good, or get it in early so that you don't miss it, because that's part of, we need to give enough time to properly look through the entries, get them to the judges, get the judges trained. And when we keep extending the deadline, it messes up that cycle. So that's why Ricky, our vice president, has said there will be no extensions this year. That being said, it's November. January 31st is a long time away, so we have plenty of time to get them in. So we'll start with writing because it's on top. So we made changes throughout in our class descriptions, in this general description, in the judging rubrics. We added a new class. And I think probably the best thing for us to do is to go through class by class and just talk about it a little bit. And as you have questions, enter them into the chat. Feel free to unmute yourselves, stop us, ask questions. And they can be anything from the changes we've made to what should I be entering in this category. We are open to any type of questions today. So it's important to read this description right up here, because it will tell you a little bit about the category, what we're looking for, what the purpose is. Things like this: entry in writing class 7 must include the URL of the web page. Little things like that will matter to the judges, so make sure you include that. We did update the Chris and Lisa, anything to add on that section? We did update judging rubrics. So here is this. It's also for class 8. Chris, do you want to add in what we did on the rubrics or have anything?
Sure, I would say that we probably didn't we probably didn't spend as much time on the rubrics as we did on the descriptions themselves. The rubrics, I think there was when we get to media relations, we'll talk. I think we made a few just very minor changes. One actually in the past, it didn't add up to 100%, which was kind of funny, and it had been on there for a year or two. But anyway, so the rubrics are pretty basic when it comes to the writing classes for most of the classes. You know, content, writing quality, creativity, and writing style. And again, getting back to that point I was making earlier, you do want to be prepared for some open-ended questions in your submission, because they might get to these rubrics. They get to it. I do understand that people have been frustrated in the past because they've spent so much time, filling in, that, this is why we did it. This is the thing. And then they get, a 1-sentence critique in return. But hopefully if the critiques are improved, then we wouldn't have that. But yeah, I wouldn't, the rubrics are pretty self-explanatory. I don't really think we did as much changes with those. They're pretty, there's four criteria, 25 points each. Oh, did we want to mention the changes they made for judging to avoid ties?
Yes. Yeah.
So, Stacey, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying yes. Go ahead.
And I might get this wrong. This was discussed at the LC leadership meeting. So in the past, the judges were a little. And Heather might chime in here. In the past, the judges were a little hamstrung in that they basically were only able to enter like a certain point total. And according to ACE, you cannot have ties, although there were in the past. But basically what they did is that they changed it so the judges can give numbers in between. So in the past, basically you got like, I think it was based like, they would sort of like go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 or something like that. Now they can give in between numbers. So that would be something for the people who have entered, who are watching this recording, there will be probably different point totals than you've seen in the past, mainly so that the judges, so you basically won't have these ties. Is that correct? Am I mischaracterizing that?
Hi, this is Heather from the office. So you're almost exactly correct. So this year,
Almost.
so something will, just so I can explain it, like the average will be like plus average, and that would probably be 15 points. Then there'd be average, which would come in at like 13 points, and then average with like a minus sign, that would be 11 points. So you're still falling into that average category, but it's giving the judge more flexibility within that instead of it just being a solid 15 points. So they'll be able to make a bigger choice within that. And that's just basically because of the way the submittable system runs, and it makes it easier for the judge, and it makes them easier to review and way less chance of tying, which will speed up the whole judging process.
Thank you, Heather.
So I think the takeaway from, the surveys and the changes that we're making is we are really, as a team, a leadership team, trying to listen to what people's needs are and what's working and what's not working, and then try and make some changes. So I think your input as first time or second or third time submittable entries is important. So never feel like you can't ask a question or voice a concern, because that's how we get better as a group. And the program's really to help all of us who are communicators, get better and get recognized. So
The submittable software is important because there's several hundred entries across all of the different categories. So it needs, nobody can manage that by hand. So we need that online software that'll work with it, and just adapting it to meet our needs, because it is an off-the-shelf software. So the judging rubric, anyone have any questions? We didn't change it for class 6, so we can keep going with writing for newspapers. A big change right here is to submit one piece, not a news release, that was published in a newspaper. Chris, do you want to talk about this a little bit more? Because you're the former journalist, so I'm going to let you take this one.
So I think, so one of the common themes you'll hear as we go through these classes is we try to create more clarity and try to eliminate ambiguity with the language as it has been in the past. So for the new people, or for the newer people, this may not be an issue. For the people who are watching on the recording, there was some vagueness involved in the description. So that's why we were really honed in on the descriptions. And this was one of them, because what we were finding was people were wondering, well, can I enter a news release into writing for newspapers? Because I'm writing a news release, it's published by a newspaper. Does that count? We didn't feel that was in the spirit of what this class is. So what we did was, we basically made it so it's not a news release. If you have a news release, you can enter that in the news release category. I think traditionally, the people who have entered in this category, and what the intent is, it is if you have content that you have submitted that either was elicited by the outlet or you volunteered that. So for example, if you do look at past winners, they have been op-eds, I think that's or something in a voice of maybe like a dean of agriculture or something. But that's the intent of the writing for newspapers. It's not basically a news release that the newspaper runs.
And just to clarify for anyone who is looking for the news release category, it's important to kind of consider not necessarily what it is, but the purpose of doing a news release, which is kind of media relations. So you're going to find that in the media relations category under news release as a class. So that's where you're going to find that, because we all know it takes stellar writing to do a news release that's going to get picked up. And so most people assume that's going to be in the writing category, but actually it's in the media relations category. So, and
that's a relatively new class. I believe the first time a news release was offered as a class was 2 years ago. Because I fortunately did fairly well in that category or in that class, but it was the first time that was offered. And I do believe it was created to basically make it so that a news release stood on its own. And so that when people are submitting in the writing for newspapers category, it is not a news release. Hopefully that makes it clear.
Right.
And I'll go on to the next one, writing for magazines. Oh, does anybody have questions about that? I'm sorry. Since we're such a small group, we can take questions if you want to either put it in the chat or. All right, well, I'll move ahead. So the next one is writing for magazines. Again, this one didn't change a whole lot, but we did clear up some of the language that maybe was a little bit vague or ambiguous. So this one wasn't a wholesale change of the description. Stacy wanted to make sure that we got a newspaper supplement uses a magazine format as acceptable, because I think in the past that language wasn't in there.
Yeah, and then we just separated out with classes 2 and 3. You put it in one or the other. And so that's where these last 2 sentences in both of these classes come from.
Yeah. Yeah, so writing within a specialized publication, people could consider it similar. So for instance, so basically you have, it basically makes it clear for an internal or external publication, which is, and we lay out the examples in there. This is where a lot of folks submit their writing that was in like their university, or I'm sorry, their college magazines, their university magazines. This is that category. Just to be clear, this is sort of that category. So if you had a piece that ran in an internal publication, be it your college magazine, your university magazine, your unit magazine, this is the spot for that category. It could also be in, I guess it could also be two, but no, it can't. I'm sorry. I'm
I
going
was
back.
curious. I was curious if that would like include, like, 'cause we put out a lot of our own publications and they're like kind of like magazine style, classy looking.
Yeah.
Like, would that be the right category for that?
In my
Yes.
opinion, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
That's what
and
I
I
was
did-
thinking, but I just wanted to double check. I was just kind of glancing over the.
yeah, and I did
categories.
actually, yes, and I missed
So it's
the,
something that's like self-published. It's not like it was, in a-
yes, and sorry for the pun, Inka, but I missed the forest for the trees here. The important thing that we did, I believe, and Lisa and Stacy, in this writing 3 class, the important thing is submit one piece of writing.
Okay.
We had seen in the past, people were submitting their entire magazine for writing for magazines, or writing for specialized publication. So going back to class 2, sorry, writing for magazines, 1 article, class 3, 1 piece of writing. Those are the important things to know for those who are watching on the recording and the people who are in this, that it's 1 piece. You can't submit your entire magazine for the writing for magazine categories.
Right. And then I just like
Okay.
too that like back to Anne's comment on research writing. So if she has written a research piece for one of those internal items, then she could enter that here, which is different than a promotional writing, which is the next category that's actually promoting something within your college, university, etc. So there is a little bit of difference there about, a specialized publication, promotion oriented, it really should go in the next category, even if it ran in that same piece. So you do have to, if you have one magazine that's kind of doing multiple things, you have to discern the best category to fit your actual writing piece.
Okay, because like like with a report, some of the reports that we put out, like I wrote the whole thing basically, and it's all about one topic. So there's like a bunch of different like smaller articles in there. Are you saying that if I was submitting in that category, I would have to choose one article out of that report, even though the report is all about the same topic, like it's all about wildfire, for example?
Yes, but your whole report could be entered in the publishing category as a report. So that this is just the writing, but you can also enter the report. Let me pull that up, and there's another whole category that it can go in. And what we're trying to avoid is having half of them enter into RLC's categories and the other half we're getting entered into publishing for annual and special reports.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So you would want to take that fire report and enter it into publishing 4, and then take the firefighter profile article and then that into writing 3. I might have.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it.
We want you to enter both. Like, take that publication and use it everywhere you can in a bunch of different C&A categories. But what was happening is half of the annual reports were coming over to RLC and the other half were in publishing, and we want
so special reports
in one basket and all of the oranges in the other basket.
The entire thing would go into the publishing category, but I could pull out like a specific article from it.
Yep. So if you have an entire newsletter, an entire report, an entire promotional piece, that goes into publishing. But if you want to start writing, and it's kind of what you're wanting judged. Do you want the whole piece judged, or do you want a piece of writing judged? Is probably the best way to kind of
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and those are great points to make, because when you look at our rubrics, the criteria within those rubrics are all about writing. That's what our category is. It's writing. It's not the whole product. We've tried to, when we get to the media relations one, we did change one of the rubrics, like photography, I think was like 10% or 15%. We lowered that because it was more to represent what the writing of that piece was. I think it was with news release. We thought that it could complement the news release, but yeah. So that's the important thing, is that these categories are for writing. They're not for the whole product.
Okay. Thank you.
Writing
And
for,
just to clarify, Chris, sorry. So for those who are fairly new, the parameters on eligibility when you're looking at parsing things out is that you can enter something in multiple categories. So if you go back to Stacy's original page that had all of the broad listings, that's a category. What you can't do is enter the same thing into multiple classes within a category. So in other words, you can't take the same news item or op-ed or whatever you wrote and put that in 3 different writing classes. But you can take something and enter it into a writing class and into a marketing class or a writing class and a publishing class. You can do those because they're different categories. So hopefully that makes a little sense about what you can double enter and what you kind of can't.
Okay.
An example of double entry would be that fire publication. The publication is in publishing 4. The firefighter profile is in writing 3, and then it also ends up in diversity 1. So you could enter that in 3 places, depending on what the publication is.
Okay.
But we've seen entries go like that before. You just couldn't take that same firefighting publication and enter the same article in, like, our firefighter profile couldn't be in writing for magazines, writing for a specialized publication.
Okay.
I hope you wrote a firefighter profile and that you'll want to enter it.
It's got a lot of, I did do a story about a woman who lost her home in the wildfires last year. So was a pretty harrowing story. So
yeah, the Oregon Department of Forestry is the firefighting agency for
Mhm.
Oregon, so.
yeah, I guess I sort of profiled ODF a little bit, but yeah. Not as powerful though.
So I want to go to promotional writing because this one's very straightforward. So writing for promotional writing. The one significant change we made to this is that we basically eliminated, there was a clause that followed what is in now. So now it basically has very specific pieces of what promotional writing is. And then in the past it had a comma, and it pretty much, I'm paraphrasing here, pretty much said, and anything else. And so what we did was we were finding that, we were looking at past, and that was creating sort of a free for all. Basically, it was sort of like it was like, oh, we're not sure what to enter, or we have this thing. And so we wanted to tighten it up. You couldn't just basically, and essentially the way it said was you could enter anything into this category. And especially when it comes to promotional writing, I mean, you could argue that, a magazine piece you write, or anything is promotional writing, but we wanted to have this very specific. So script writing for audio and visual media, writing 5. This didn't change a whole lot. I think it was almost the same. We may have changed one word, but it wasn't.
We added in things, like podcasts and
we had
speeches.
Yeah,
we added podcasts.
And there was a clause for those of you that may have entered it in the past that said to submit the original. We said just the final. We don't need to see all of the iterations of it. And then
speech writing 6 was, I don't think we made a single change to that one. And then I'm gonna let Stacy take writing for the web. Writing 7, writing for the web, that's the fun one.
So we changed writing for the web quite a bit. Again, it's that one article published online, including the URL. It needed to be original content that isn't eligible in classes 1 to 4. So again, we're just specifying so that we didn't see the same article that, I'll pick on myself, that Stacy wrote in classes 1, 2, and 7. Stacy needs to enter separate articles. And then a new sentence is, it can't just be a PDF of a news release. So again, we're pushing the news releases back to the media relations category because we were seeing things in writing for the web that should have been entered in media relations news release, that class 2. So we added that sentence right here to just help direct people into the right category and find that right category. So writing for the web is for something that is meant to be online.
So this would be where blogs go, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, it is something that you wrote just to go on a website.
Okay.
It's something that if I Google search, I'm going to find it. Because it, you know, the SEO is not going to pick up your PDFs and everything.
Yeah.
Yes, and on that blog point, if a news release is put on a what you call a blog site, if it's a news release, it should be entered in the news release category. We can't, basically, I think a few people, including myself, are thinking, well, anything that's online could be right. It's writing for the web, not writing on the web. It's not basically your piece of writing ends up on the web. So if it's a blog post that's clearly a blog post, then I definitely say that, yes, that is definitely within the spirit of this class. If it's clearly a news release that got put onto a blog, then that needs to be entered in the news release category.
And I think it's also important with this category to recognize when you're talking about the PDFs, you know, extension is big into things like fact sheets and newsletters and things that we PDF and put up for further information, or even annual reports. And so this is clarifying that it's not any of those type things that you would attach to the web. It's actual content on the web. So if you have a fact sheet or you have a report, those can go up into class 3 and be judged up there for the category that they're actually in. But just because you have a bunch of fact sheets on the web, that doesn't make it, kind of to Chris's point, writing for the web.
Yeah, plus it's not good for accessibility purposes to have PDFs of things. If it's in an HTML format, you're good. You're good. If it's so.
And again, we're trying to push like the newsletters back over to publishing one where they're supposed to be entered.
Right.
So some of this is just trying to get people pointed into the right categories, because that's what we were seeing, is that something was in writing 7 should have been in publishing 1. Something was in writing 3 should have been in publishing 4. So helping people navigate that there are a lot of categories and classes within each of those categories and find the right ones.
And the thing that's important about that is then you have the right rubric and the right description around what you're submitting to enhance your chances of actually doing well. Because although the judges can move you around to a different category, if we have judges that haven't been around the program for a long time, they might not even be aware, right? And so we're trying to give you the best option.
Anne, you just raised your hand.
Oh, are you muted, Anne?
Oh, we can't hear you, but it doesn't say she's muted.
Oh, no, I still can't hear her. Can you maybe type it in the chat, Anne?
Oh, I just asked her to unmute. I'm trying to.
Well, that's frustrating because I see her little red sign mute and then unmute, but she's gonna type it out.
And Stacy, do you want to take the last one, the new class?
Yeah, so we added a writing for social media. There are social media classes over in the social media category, but none of them judged just the caption. So we wanted to recognize that this is a growing field for all of us as ACE members, and have a way for your captions to be critiqued. So again, we put, because it's a new category too, we collaborated with the Social Media LC on this one, and we tried to be very clear so that it will be clear for the judges as well that it is about the caption. We look at the judge will look at the whole picture of the image and everything that accompanied it, but we're judging the writing in this category. And the submissions will consider the social media platform, because we understand that your Facebook post will be a lot longer than your tweet. So they will look at that so that the judge can consider the platform and not devalue a tweet because it's so short. Think about the audience too. And did Anne's get in chat?
I think she's working on it.
Okay.
So do we
So
want
that's-
to cover media relations where we have about 15 minutes left and we want to make
Yeah.
sure we have time for other questions too.
For the social media post, that's just one single post. It wouldn't be like a campaign where it was like several posts.
Correct.
If you have a campaign, that's actually in the social media category. And so, yep, but if you want writing judged, then it would go in this category for a single post.
Okay.
And you could take one post out of your campaign and again, enter the firefighting campaign and social media campaign, organic or paid, whichever one, and then
Okay.
enter the writing over in, oh, now I'm back in publishing. We like them too. And then enter the writing over here in writing 8. So again, you can take the work you're doing and get a lot of traction out of it among the different C&As, and we highly recommend doing that. So media relations, oh, did Anne's come into chat, Lisa?
Yep.
Yeah, it's related to media relations. So
So-
we could maybe go through media relations first and then answer it, or although we honestly didn't have very many changes to media relations, I don't
Right.
think.
Right. So just to make sure that anybody who's watching in the future who might not be able to see the chat, I just want to read Anne's question. Her comment is a question about where things belong. Most of what I write is set up as a news release, even most of our feature stories. Our unit has not traditionally put much emphasis on media relations, though I do make special efforts to pitch certain stories to media outlets. So it has usually not felt like I have a good case for a media relations category, even if I felt I had a particularly well-written article. So that ends the comment, but then just with a head nod at, Anne, are you asking then where you should put these things that you've pitched to media, or you're saying because they have to be posted as a news release, you feel like you can't put them in media relations, or can you maybe just clarify for us? And then while she's doing that, Stacy, do you just want to highlight the media relations?
Yeah, big changes here were the rubrics, and Chris kind of covered some of this already. You've got your planning and development, your media interest, quality, target audience, and impact. And if I'm correct, we increased impact slightly on media relations campaign 1 for the rubric. And then need to get back. Still in publishing. Rubric for class 2. Newsworthiness and timeliness, we increased the points here. Writing AP style, we made sure that that got 30 points. Again, you'll see these are very detailed rubrics, so we don't have a lot of time, but we'll let you read those on your own time. Again, Chris mentioned earlier, we dropped down the photo graphics, cut lines. While these are important, this is writing and media relations, so drop those down to 5 points. And then rubric 3, kind of the same thing. Just take a look at the different rubrics based on which one you're entering.
For the, sorry, for the
No, go
newer
ahead,
people,
Chris.
yeah, for the newer people who are watching this on recording or in the room, this is something where I would give advice to somebody who's entered in news release category. Definitely set aside some time to enter your or to do your entry, because especially there's criteria for like where it was picked up, how it was picked up. And so you want to sort of keep, like, so for instance, if you had a news release that got a lot of media pickup, 6 months ago, you want to start going back and looking at that and start, compiling, if you hadn't already, sort of compiling a list of the outlets that picked it up. I did do an entry at the last minute, and I basically took a little bit of time to do it, but that's important. The judges want to see that, see this, because that's a big part of the impact in terms of the release. So this is something that seems pretty straightforward, but you definitely would want to set aside some time for those types of things.
Right. And I think the other thing that's important besides just the time it takes to enter is, I think sometimes people think that I don't want to enter because like this is a group of professionals and my work's like not to that level, or, I haven't been in the university environment for a long time. And so I haven't figured all that stuff out yet. And I just want to say that as a whole, the C&A program entries usually range, although ACE has a large membership, entries usually only range from about 1 to 16 entries in a given class. And the average is even less than that. I think, like maybe 6 or 7, right? So I think it's worth your time to submit, and don't be intimidated about, I'm going up against like the head of this division over here who I've seen has won before, and I don't really want to be judged against them, because you're going to get critiqued back. And hopefully with the changes we've made, helping the judges and training, that's going to get stronger to help you kind of figure out. And I also think the change to submittable is going to help you see when you get your points back where you could improve your stuff too. So I think there is value there. And then also kind of addressing the question that was on the table about what happens when a lot of our stuff is put up as a news release. And then what happens if I can't make a real good case for media relations. So I think that I think you need to take your best news release. If your division's motto is everything goes out as a news release, so like it or not, some of those things are outside of our communicators' control. And so I think you can still pick your best one and submit it. And like Chris said, make your case for the amount of pickup and the coverage and the storyline that's been used. But then also, if you feel like that's hitting a dead wall, then maybe the answer is pick up a category with a piece that you're proud of that was maybe circulated internally, and enter that in the writing category. Because at the end of the day, we just want to improve, right? I mean, that's my goal when I submit C&A is if I get an award, great. It helps me understand where I fit amongst my peers. But I really just kind of want to improve my trade skill. And so I think at the end of the day, if you want judged on your writing, then I would submit, I would find something to submit in a category that you think fits you.
Yeah, and I didn't want to mislead when I was talking about, compiling a list of places where it was picked up. 60% of the criteria for the news release category is writing and key messaging. So writing AP style is 30%. And if you read the rubrics, clear, concise, non-technical writing for a general news or trade audience, free of jargon, acronyms, and scientific language. Sounds like the kind of story that you would be writing if it was, even if you didn't intend it as a news release, but your organization wants to send it out as a news release. Key messaging impact would also clearly presents why targeted readers should care about the topic of the story and why it should matter to them personally. So 60% of that news release is really does fit within a writing sphere, not the amount of pickup it got.
And you can also enter more than one. Say you have 3 news releases that you really like, you can enter all 3. I think it was this past year we saw that where one university, I don't think it was in our category, I'm not sure which, but one university swept gold, silver, bronze in a class. It's perfectly acceptable for you to enter 3 news releases or 3 media relations campaigns, however you want to enter, as long as they're different ones. So, one is on the brown egg campaign, one's on the white egg campaign, and one's on the all other egg campaign. Pick on Lisa this time.
That's excellent. So with that, I think we have about 5 minutes left. So are there other questions or things that we didn't cover that you might have that you want to kind of just throw out there while you have our collective brain trust here?
I have one more question. I was curious, so you mentioned a little bit earlier, but what the critique looks like? Does it, did you get, after you've submitted and you know, the awards, they've been judged, like, do you get back those like scoring sheets so you can look at them? Is that, you know, what do you see after you submit?
Heather, can you comment on how that gets done from the ACE side?
Sorry. So after the judges have finished, all of the judges, so it's not just your category, after all of the judges have finished, you'll get an email that has the judges review and their comments on it as your rating overall, and if you've gotten an award or not.
Okay.
If you've gotten an award, it will say on there that you've won that award.
Okay.
Okay, I could probably find one of mine from last year and share that if you're interested too.
Oh yeah, I'm just like curious what kind of feedback you'll get. I mean,
Well, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that's very, Inka, that's a good question. And unfortunately, it's very varied because you
Yeah.
have different judges who have a different philosophy on what they need to provide back.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, ACE wasn't really clear in saying these are our expectations to our judges and setting that appropriately. And I think that that is beginning to change. And so I think that what's happened in the past as far as feedback is maybe not what you'll see in the future, but it's only
Okay.
usually a couple sentences about what was weak that you could improve on, and then maybe what is really great and the strengths, and then I think, Heather, don't you get like your total score as well?
Yep. So it follows like the rubric. So it will say like you scored this in planning and development, and you
Mhm.
scored this in this category. So you'll also be able to see where the breakdown is from that. And then the overall comments. I don't think they give you a comment for each one of the rubrics. I think it's just an overall comment. And definitely if you're not happy with your review, that's definitely time to go back to your LC group, because that's who is choosing ultimately, or who we're working with to find judges. So we want to hear about that sooner than later, so that when we review the judges, we're able to pick better for the following year.
Okay. Thanks.
And-
That's
and-
helpful.
Yeah, and we got a lot of those in our survey about the actual critique itself, because we're sort of on the A part. The emphasis on this is on the A, is on the awards part in this coffee chat. But yeah, the C part is definitely the one that is needs. It's not new. It's been going on. Where I do think that people do feel the pain is it costs $45 to enter if you're an ACE member, and $140 if you're not, and so it's not free to enter. And so I can speak for myself. If I pay, well, if my organization, or even if we do know people who are personally paying for their Lisa does. And if you get a one sentence back, it's an issue that basically ACE leadership is aware of, and it feels to me, I'm hearing things concretely trying to change, but we'll see. But what we can do is we can just try to make, what we try to do with making the class descriptions, we try to basically make them very clear, or more clear, so that it wouldn't be on the onus of the judge to go, I'm not sure what to do with this.
So I think just in the to respect everybody's time today, if you go back to the top of the chat, I did enter each of our individual emails. If you have further questions as you move forward doing entries, or you have colleagues who are entering in your office and they're like, we're confused too, feel free to reach out to us and we'll try and help you through as best as possible. Also, just know that as you're going through this process and you're wanting to maybe enter into a different category, if you go back to the ACE website where Stacy was, you can click on the page that has the, it actually just says professional development, and there's a tab there for the learning communities. And then each of the learning communities is listed, and the learning communities are correlated to these categories that you're entering. And on that page, the leadership of each LC is listed. So just like we're the leadership team for this LC and questions, feel free to reach out to those folks in the other LCs, and they can also help you through those categories. So, and we can surely point that in your direction as well. So with that, and Stacy, thanks for popping that up in the chat. So we sure want to thank you for your time. Again, if you have questions as you go, let us know. And we wish you all the very best of luck as you enter this year. So with that, I think we'll sign off and see you all later.